Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nina. Today we're going to be going over all of the type tools in Illustrator. So that would be the type tool, the area type tool, type on a path tool, vertical type tool, vertical type on a path tool, and the touch type tool. So that's a lot and it might be a longer video, so follow the timestamps if you are just looking for one specific one, and otherwise just keep watching and you can see how all of them work. Also, before we get started, I do want to give a quick shout out to one person who commented on one of my videos. For some reason, YouTube is not letting me reply to your comment. I mean, I can see it in the preview for notifications, but then anytime I click on it, it shows that there's nothing there. So that is why I'm giving you a shout out right now. And I don't know how to say your name, so I'm just going to put it up on the screen here. But congratulations to both of us because we are now best friends. But I really appreciate anybody who's watching these videos. It's very encouraging to know that you guys like them and that I'm not just wasting my time. But I really enjoy teaching Illustrator, and I'll probably be teaching what I know on some of the other programs too eventually. But I love graphic design and I love all of this, so teaching it to other people is really near and dear to my heart. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you know other people who would enjoy these videos, go ahead and share them with them, and I guess that's it. So let's get into the video. Alright, so we're going to start off with the type tool. The type tool is right here. The keyboard shortcut for that is T. So with the type tool, if you just single click, it's going to show you a little bit of filler text here. Lorem ipsum is what they call it. It's Latin, I think. So if you start to type, actually let's make this bigger so you can see. I'm going to make it quite big here. Okay, so when you just type like this, it's going to keep going forever when you just single click to start your text box. So it'll just keep going until you press enter to return it. But if you click and drag, that's going to give your text an area to work within, and as you can see, it'll fill it with this filler text and it will automatically go to the next line for you. And you can change the dimensions of the box with your selection tool by just clicking and dragging. The type tool works very closely with the character panel, so if you're not seeing that, go up to window and then go to type, and then you can click which ones you want. So I like to have character and paragraph at least open because those ones I use a lot when working with type. So you can change the font to whichever font you want. You can change the point size here. You can also, when you're in the character panel, just click in here, and instead of either typing a value or choosing one of the ones from the drop down menu here, you can click the up and down arrows. That's also another way you can do it. Sometimes it's more helpful to do it that way if you're just looking to do a couple point sizes and you don't want to have to type it in. Right here is the leading. And what leading is it's the space between baseline and baseline. And if you're not familiar with any typographic terms, which I know some of them, but I'm not super up on my typography terms, but a baseline is the line that's on the bottom of your text. So like, I don't know if you can see, but there's a blue underline right here. That's where the baseline is. So the space between baseline to baseline is your leading. If you change that to be higher, it's going to have more space. If you change it to be lower, there's going to be less space. Over here, you have your kerning and your tracking. These are similar, but they're different. So if you had just a few words, you normally have to worry about kerning and tracking that much with body text. If you're trying to manipulate it to fit in within a margin and try to eliminate widows and orphans, which I'll show you what those are in a second. Then it might be beneficial to mess with these a little bit, which I've had to do like in brochure design or things like that. But mostly these are used for things where there are only a couple words and it really matters with the spacing between it, like in logo design and things like that. So kerning is the space between two characters. It will adjust, like if I put this down, it's going to bring that G closer to the I, but if I put it back up, it's going to lengthen that space. Tracking is when you want to do that to multiple areas. I could set the space between the characters on this entire thing by just highlighting it and setting the tracking. So kerning is a space between two characters and tracking is a space between all the ones you have selected. Alright, now these ones over here, use these very carefully and sparingly because it's usually frowned upon to squish and lengthen text in any way. So you can do this vertically here and you can do it horizontally carefully here. Oftentimes these are used badly. I know that they can be used well, but it is, it usually cheapens the look of the text. So just make sure to be careful about that. This one, this is a baseline shift. So if you were to set that, I can make design go up higher, or I can make it go lower depending on your number there. That's usually used for things like something like that, or if you're doing like first, then you'd put that up higher, maybe make it a little smaller, things like that. That's when you'd want to use the baseline shift. So in addition to the baseline shift, if you wanted to do the things like I mentioned before, like first and things like that, you can select this and go down here, and that makes it more of a standard thing, and it's a lot easier. So I'm sure there are other instances where you would need a baseline shift. I can't really think of any right now, but you could do it that way, or you could just hit these buttons at the bottom and do that as well. And of course you have rotation, so if you wanted to select something and rotate it, you could do that. Make sure your text box is big enough for it to move within, otherwise it's just going to disappear. So you can see it's rotated each character, and then if you wanted them rotated but they're too far away, again, you can mess with the tracking and the kerning. Alright, and then we have this thing right here which makes it all caps, so it doesn't matter what you've typed, this makes it all caps, and then you can switch it back by unchecking that. This one makes small caps, so you can see what small caps is. I don't really have to describe it right now if you can see it, but then you can underline and do a strike through. Okay, so those are the character options. So if you want to move to the paragraph panel as well, you can change things like the way it's aligned. You can left and right align it, center align. You can change the justification. Let's use some filler text for this. A tip: if you ever want to use full justification where it spans the length of your text box and doesn't have these uneven edges here, I would definitely recommend not hyphenating. It usually makes it look a little bit better that way. And then of course, while it has full justification, you can change the alignment of the last line or choose for it to span the entire width with this button right here. These settings right here can adjust your left indent, your right indent, the first line left indent, and then the spacing before a paragraph or after a paragraph. I find these to be quite helpful in some circumstances. One, I'll give an example, is if you have a list like so and it kicks off to the next line, then you can highlight those, and then what you'll want to do is up your left indent and put down your first line left indent, and that way these will all start at the same, I know these don't because there we go. That way these all start at the same place. So that can be pretty helpful. And then these would change the space before or after your hard return. So if I wanted to make spaces between those numbers, then that's when you'd want to use that. Alright, so that covers most of the character and paragraph panels. And that's pretty much all we have on the type tool. So now if you want to go back to your menu over here, your toolbar, then you can click type on a path tool. And that is where my little banner comes in. I made this one time. Bring that up here. So if you had something like this where you'd want your text to go along the banner, you obviously can't just do straight text because that wouldn't fit. So that's where type on a path tool comes in. So when you click on a path, it's going to erase the stroke on that path, so it's just a blue line. If I clicked away, you wouldn't be able to see that path anymore. Most likely you won't want to have your path right exactly on the bottom part. You'd probably want it in the middle. So instead of doing that, you can take your direct selection tool, keyboard shortcut A, click this line, and actually you can see that this line is broken up into a few anchor points. I have right here selected, but I'd also want to select the rest of that line as well. So with that selected, I'm going to Control C for copy and Control V for paste, and I have that exact path. And now I can put that right where I want it, and I'm going to put it a little towards the bottom because the text is a little tall, so you shouldn't put it right in the middle or it'll be too close to the top. But then take your type on a path tool, click on the path, and then your text goes more or less where it should, and then you can choose your selection tool and move it around and adjust it so that it sits where it's supposed to. Now sometimes you'll want it to start or end at a different place along that path. If you hover your cursor over it, it's going to show what it's showing right now, which is a vertical line and then an arrow coming off of that. When that shows up with your direct selection tool, you can click and drag that, and it will move the point at which your text is starting. And similarly, there's another one at the end, and you can choose where your text ends. And when you have text, if there's text left that's not showing but it is still there, you're gonna have this red box with the plus on it, and that just shows you that there's still some text, and that happens with text boxes as well. Alright, so there's that. And sometimes you'll find that you will need text along a shape, such as a circle, and if you've seen my shape tools video, then you'll know that you can hold Alt and Shift and expand a circle from the middle, and that's a very helpful trick when using type on a path, because oftentimes you'll want to align the same circles so it's easier to be able to find the center point and make a circle out to the size you want it to be, rather than trying to line up a circle by doing it this way, because that's never going to be super accurate. It's harder to be super accurate that way. So if you have a circle, you can click on that path and it will make your text go nicely along that. There are also some settings within there, so if you have text on a path already, you can double click on the text on a path tool and some settings here will come up. One of them is flip. If I hit preview here, you'll see that that flips it to the middle of the path instead of the outside of the path. You can also change where this line meets. Right now it's at the baseline. You can make it go to the center of your text, or your ascender, which is the top of your text and where the tallest ones come up to, or your descender, which is past the baseline and it's the lowest part, like where the P comes down and where G's come down, things like that. So those are some options. I'm used to working with the baseline, though sometimes it is very helpful, I've found, to use center. You also have some effects you can add to it. Skew, gravity, I'm not really sure what that one is. I've actually never used these, but feel free to play with these and see what they do. I'm sure with some creativity you can find the best way to use them. And you can also adjust spacing here. Sometimes you'll want a circular logo or something like that, and sometimes you'll want something on the top and then maybe something on the bottom here, but you don't want it to keep running along this side and then your text would be upside down. You'd probably want it to be upright like this one is down here. There's a couple ways that you can do that. I'll just make a copy over here and we'll do both. So one of them is to go to your type on a path tool settings, make this align to the center, and then we're gonna copy Control-C and paste in front, which is Control-F, and that made a copy of what we had selected and put it right on top. So I'm going to actually undo that real quick. I have it copied. I'm gonna lock this, which is Control-2, and then Control-F again to paste in front. So I have two of the same thing, and I cannot select this or move this, which is good for right now. So I'm gonna take that one that I have and move it with my direct selection tool. Wait till that little cursor pops up with the arrow and things. Put this to the bottom, and then obviously it's not oriented the right way, so we're gonna go to this and press flip here, and then move it around. That's one way to do it. Also, if you're trying to do this sort of effect, sometimes you'll want to make sure that these are aligned, and I can tell right now the L right here is higher than the E. So in order to make that right, you'll want to Control-R, get your rulers out, drag down a horizontal one, and then that can help you align. Gotta unlock that. That can help you align those correctly. So another way to do this, if you wanted to keep it aligned to the baseline, you're going to make two paths. Again, you can find the center point of this one and then Alt-Shift and drag out from the middle and make this one align with the ascender of your text that you have on the top. And then switch over to your type on a path tool and then flip that to make sure that the baseline is aligned to the inside. Sometimes it's hard to grab the right one of these. Just make sure that if you grab the wrong one, just move it out of the way, and then you can fix that. Sometimes too, if you're having a rough time with getting the right one of these, if you're working with a circle, you can also just rotate the entire path. So if you go to your selection tool and you can see the bounding box, just click and drag and that does the same exact thing. Okay, so that's two ways to make basically the same effect. This one's a little tighter than that one. But anyway, so that's how you do that. The first way I think is a little easier. It actually took me a little bit to discover that way of doing things. I had been trying to align circles forever before that, and it was a little difficult, but you can use either way, whichever one you prefer. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the vertical type tool. This one pretty much just makes vertical type. So again, if you just single click, it's going to let you type forever and ever. But if you click and drag, you're going to make a text box. And this reads right to left because I'm pretty sure this tool is for languages where they read up and down, right to left. Of course, I still have some paragraph settings going on here, and you can see that these things, the alignment, they change accordingly. So instead of being left to right, now they're up and down here in your paragraph panel. And we can just change these back to 0. That makes it a little more normal. All right, now we're going to go on to some of the other tools here. So right here, when we right click on here, you can only see 3 of the type tools, but there are more than that. If you go down here to these 3 dots and click on that, it will show you the rest of the tools that we have here. So one of which we haven't gone over is the area type tool. I'm going to just drag these into my panel here. Okay, now we have all the type tools. So when you have the area type tool selected, you can use a shape, like we could make another circle to use, but that's boring. We already did that, so I'm going to use something from the pen tool. So if you can just make something completely whatever you want it to be. All right, we have a weird ugly blob. So the area type tool, if you click on the path there, it fills it with text. Shapes filled with text, I think probably would benefit from full justification. There's that. That looks pretty good for it being a weird blob. And like a lot of the other tools, there's some options. I actually haven't played with the area type tool almost at all. Actually, come to think of it, the only time I've ever done things like this is in InDesign. So I've literally never used this tool before. So you can go ahead and play with these options if you want to. I've never even used this tool before, so I don't find it super helpful to go over this, but you can obviously play with it if you want to. You have full creative freedom. Vertical area type tool is just like that, but it's going to fill right to left again, and it's going to do it vertically. Then the vertical type on a path tool, it's still going to go right to left, but it's going to make it align vertically to your path instead of horizontally, and that's kind of a cool effect. I'm not sure when it could really be used, but it definitely is cool. And then the last one I'll go over is the touch type tool. So if I have a word here, okay, I made 2 copies and you'll see why in a second. So if you go down to your touch type tool, you can click on one specific letter and start manipulating it from there. You can rotate it, you can stretch it, you can resize it, you can do many, many things to it. You can move it around, and the rest of your text is still live editable text, and it responds to what you are doing with the other letters. So like if this one takes up more room, the other ones are going to move over for it. And this is also helpful too because if you wanted to change the word, we'll do something lame like dreamin', then you can change that text and it will keep the effects that you had already put on it, which is really nice because you can also edit text another way. So if you were to have your text here and go Control-Shift-O, that's going to create outlines. So now these are each their own shape. And if you ungroup them, Control-Shift-G, you can also do exactly what I did with the other ones, but now there's no way you're going to edit that text. So it's definitely a less destructive way of editing if you are to use a touch type tool. But if you go between these two and start typing, it's just going to mimic the one before it. I'm not making real words here, but you can see that if I type after one with an effect on it, then it's going, not an effect, but like that has been manipulated, then it's going to just copy that. Alright, so those are all the type tools. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, like if you learned something, and subscribe for more graphic design things, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay sane during this quarantine time and all that. If you have tutorial suggestions or some other sort of content you'd like to see, then go ahead and post a comment. I might not always be able to reply to comments because YouTube sucks, but I do see them, I do appreciate them, and thank you so much for watching my videos. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have an awesome day. Bye.